Welcome back to the third part of NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith, Neil Mitchell and Steve Hastie. And I've had a message asking why we've got pictures of Neil and Steve on there. And is that Steve Hastie in the background? No, that's Steve Hastie in the background. There he is. So, we didn't miss him out. We didn't have time to knock one up with the Mearns on, unfortunately. But I suppose that could be Ian Mearns in the background there.
Somebody asked on Twitter if that was Noddy Holder in the background.
That's right. Yeah, only at Christmas.
Exactly.
But yeah, big thanks to Jabs, John Owen. He's been fantastic over this lockdown period. He's working, but he knocks up all the flyers for us free of charge, which is absolutely fantastic, just to advertise it. So big shout out to him. Thank you very much, mate. Love you lots. Alan Hall says, hi lads, any chance the deal that you were working on with the Dubai group could still happen if the Saudi bid fails? Now, we did do something last week about BZG. We had a BZG exclusive show last week where you lads opened the doors. But I mean, you know, I think we cleared it last week. There's no chance, Neil, is there, of going back to that if this deal failed?
At this moment in time, I wouldn't envisage that. I don't know what effect COVID's had on their portfolio, but I know everybody over here has been touched by it in some way, shape or form. I think the appetite would always be there for mid-hat. I reckon we could rev mid-hat up. No bother to get excited about it. I think that would be probably the easiest thing of the whole thing to do. The question is, how excited could we get Sheikh Khaled about it? And I think there'd be possibilities, but at this moment in time, no. I think we'd be down the line before that would come into their thoughts again. Yeah. Sadly.
Steve, you know, same question to you. It's more or less dead in the water, that, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we said last week, you know, once PIF came in, you know, that was sort of all bets were off as far as the conversations that we had because they were quite surprised. And as Neil says, with COVID and with portfolios and, you know, the cautious nature, I very much doubt. And there's no need. From my point of view, there would be no need for it because I'm still 100% confident that this deal we've got on the cards is going to go through sooner rather than later.
Yeah, me too, mate. Me too. Albert Mooney says, this takeover delay is affecting my mental health. Insanity is taking over so much that I was convinced I saw Joe Linton control and pass the ball the other night. The lads with the white coats are at my door. Syntax error, Ian, he says, I saw Rafa in front of a taxi going over the Biker Bridge yesterday. So that's a possible indication of who the new manager's going to be.
I hope he meant going over it as in driving, not going over the edge.
Perhaps he's sitting waiting for the takeover as well.
Name Jogan says, does the delay mean there is more chance of getting approval or chance of rejection? Surely if they were going to reject the takeover, you would have heard by now. I mean, that is the kind of feeling that we all have, isn't it, Neil? That, you know, the delay isn't a bad thing. It's getting all your ducks in a row, which is what Albert Mooney says, just making sure they have all their ducks in a row because there will be a negative reaction born out mainly of jealousy.
They've had umpteen opportunities to say no. And once they find a no, it's a no. They don't need to continue doing anything. Once that no is found, alas, it's a waste of everybody's time to do anything else. Yeah. So, you know, the longer it goes on, the longer they're in to know. And my opinion is it's like I said earlier, I think it's way past that point anyway now. I think we're in a negotiation rather than an owner's and director's test.
And like Ian said, Steve, you know, really, this isn't anything to do with politics. So the fact that the MPs are queuing up to sign bits of paper and, you know, kick off about it, it's literally just a bit of, you know, political gesturing to get yourself, you know, in the spotlight and get yourself recognised as, you know, somebody, you know, off the back of this huge story which has developed over the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you just look at the names that cropped up, the MPs that stuck their head above the parapet and started muttering on, you know, people that we'd never heard of, people we didn't even know were MPs. You know, we're not getting the heavy hitters coming in shouting their mouth off. We're not getting cabinet members. We're not getting members of the Labour Party opposition who, you know, are frontline spokesmen or anything like that. We're getting incidental people who we had no idea even had a position as an MP. And, you know, that's the whole top and bottom of it. And as Neil says, you know, a no's a no. And if there was something that had popped up 6 weeks ago that was a no, it would still be. And they would have said there and then, this is Richard Masters, like Neil said, all along, actually, for the last, 6 weeks at least. This is Richard Masters just making sure that he comes out of this with something that's not just for the Premier League, as in a new owner, a new Newcastle United owner, but something for the other 19 clubs in the Premier League. Sorted out piracy, sorted out this, sorted out that, sorted out the fact that MENA is no longer one group. We've now potentially got 4 or 5 different MENAs because it's encouraged the Asian Football League to do exactly that, break MENA up under their contract. And if MENA can be broken up into different sections and it gets you more money, or potentially more money, then, you know, that's something that we are looking at now, and we can move into lots and lots of little business idiosyncrasies that he's identified when he's come in, that perhaps he's thought, well, if we can change this and change that, that's better than the deal that we had under the previous person running the league. And I've made a name for myself, and there's something on the shelf there with my name on the front of that portfolio to show how well I've done, and I've done it in 9 months, not in 9 years.
Yeah. Robert Guy says, what would you like the plan for our club to be over the next few years under the new owners, and how long before we can realistically expect to be competing in Europe? Have a good one, lads. Thanks, Robert. Neil, plan for the future?
I would like this. We need to have 2 strands to it. We need to build a platform and then spring from the platform. It needs to be evolution, not necessarily revolution. There's a lot of infrastructure things we need to sort out. We need to sort the academy and the training ground and all of that to make it a more appealing place for people to want to come. Because that then in itself will make us more competitive. We need strategic signings and clever signings, not just big money chucked around for the sake of it, in my opinion. And then that can lead to 2 things. 1, it'll lead to organic growth, and 2, it gives us a squad that, again, bigger names will want to join down the line. It'll take 4 to 5 years at least, and we're gonna make mistakes along the way, and we've got to be patient with that. But I think anything that's done is done with the right intent, and as long as we see that it's been done with the right intent and the heart's in the right place, we'll follow it and we'll back it to the hilt. It cannot be much worse than the 13 years of strangulation and stagnation and the ghost ship that Mike Ashley currently runs. Yeah,
Steve, same to you. What would you like to see?
Very similar to Mitch. A similar sort of approach. I'd also like to see when owners come in that they're reaching out to the community, that they're building as part of that platform, that football platform and that business platform. They're building a community platform. I know that the club does an awful lot of good work with the foundation. I know that the foundation's there as a springboard for them, but I'd like to see that springboard not necessarily be wrapped up entirely in the foundation, but have lots and lots of tentacles that are out there that support lots and lots of groups in many different ways for the positive. And I think that's also where you need to have a face to the football club. I think you need to have someone who's out there as a CEO, as a chief executive, that becomes recognised and becomes known, and who promotes the football club in that way. And I think we need to see ambassadors brought back to Newcastle United. And I think that there's a place for ambassadors, ex-players, people who have been linked to the club in the past, who can do an awful lot of good, both within the community, in Tyneside, and in the wider world. names that people would recognise and names that would immediately conjure up an image of what Newcastle United is really, really about. Obviously, the first example that comes to my mind is Kevin Keegan, because we know that the charismatic, and anyone who's ever been to an event with Kevin Keegan, or was around when Keegan played, or was around when he was manager, and for any of the young ones, out there who perhaps didn't experience it, it would be a marvellous experience for them to be in supporting a football club with Kevin Keegan back involved in some way, shape or form, or somewhere in his ilk. He for me epitomises what an ambassador would be. He epitomises everything to do with Newcastle United in terms of getting it. And I don't think people realise how big Kevin Keegan was as a footballer and how big Kevin Keegan's name was in world football. And in the same way as other clubs, and you look at the German clubs and the way that they've modelled themselves and the way they bring in ex-players in executive roles, even because they've educated themselves. The Dutch do it as well. I think that there's scope for having both ambassadors and executives in Newcastle United if the people who are linked with a football club who have that intelligence up there.
Yeah, great answer. Colin Wilson Tooney on Twitter says, hi lads, 10 MPs protest against takeover. Will this have any effect? Can we expect an announcement end of the season, the 26th, in time for the transfer window on the 27th of July? And last question, WTF is going on? Great show. Thanks, Steve. We've answered all your questions if you watch part 1 and part 2.
Yeah. All I'd say about the 27th, Steve, is I hope it's not the 27th.
Yeah.
My wife will go absolutely scatty if even during COVID I ruin our wedding anniversary.
Mine's on the 26th, so I don't want it to be on the 26th.
That's right.
So, yeah.
So that's that weekend taken out. We'll take that out. We'll go to it. Shall we start throwing out the 25th then?
Mighty Mag says, when's it happening, lads, and how's the confidence levels? I think you'll gather we're all still very, very confident that this is going to happen. Rupert says it's dwindling by the day for him. Next question, Wilf McFarlane says, I can't believe this hold-up has anything to do with the normal owners and down test. It's sickening to think normal people could lose their jobs while the Premier League work out how to make as much money from this takeover as possible. It's a good point, isn't it, really? I mean, we have got people's jobs on the line now at St James's Park, Mitch, and, it does appear that, we are great believers that this is going to go through, and you do feel that this is just, Richard Keys getting all of his ducks in a row so he can come out of the hero, and, the Premier League will make a lot of money from this potential takeover.
Richard Masters, mate. Richard Keys is the one with the gorilla gloves.
Yeah. I'm actually just reading the next point by Graham Harrison where he's so apologies for that, you're correcting us. Yeah, he's going to come out the hero, isn't he?
You're right, and we've touched on this a few times over the last few weeks. There's so much more than the normal owners and directors test going on now, and I think what is genuinely now being ignored, and again we've talked about this today, is the effect on the fan base and on the city and on the community, and people whose jobs revolve around the club and are in some ways connected to the club and its normal business, and because the club isn't functioning normally. And because there's doubt about who will be in charge for next season and what effect that may or may not have on some of these companies and how money is and is not spent, all of that uncertainty does lead to people worried about their jobs. At a time when we've had all this COVID going on and all the concerns of lockdown, I mean, we've had a hard lockdown for a long period of time over here in the UAE, and it's really what only still slowly getting back to normal. You still can't get into Abu Dhabi without a COVID test. They've got their border shut still. You've got to do a quick test on the border, which takes an hour and a half, or have a negative test within the previous 48 hours. So Abu Dhabi has still got their borders locked down. We've got all of this kind of pressure on globally, and there's people who've been furloughed or who've been on reduced salaries. I see the effect over here on salaries and on positions. It's an additional pressure and concern brought about by the fact that this is now dragged on and become something much more than an owner test. and it's starting to become a bit of a disgrace, and it's starting to reflect badly on the Premier League now. They've got to actually make a decision. Whether they've made that decision to do it after the end of the season, I remember reading a newspaper report that the police were concerned about the Cans hashtag, apparently. Well, dear me. That's just ridiculous. Because no matter what happens, people are going to want to see the back of the actually off properly.
Yeah.
And so we've got to, it's time that decision was taken because of the pressure on so many different ways and on so many different people.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Rob Turnbull says the likely lads look like younger versions of Alan Bleasdale, Alan Robson, and Mike Neville. So I'm presuming you must be Mike Neville, Neil.
It looks like it, I presume, yes.
Maybe Alan Robson.
In the middle.
Yeah, and maybe he's looked like a young Alan Bleasdale. So thanks for that, Rob. Yeah, I'm not sure what we'll make of that, but
I'm quite impressed that he's done a good job of making you look even more camp than you did on the AC/DC picture.
Yeah, Albert Mooney was a little less polite. He just says, "Great image of you, Steve. Poor Mitch looks like a pedo, and who Steve supposed to be." And this is the one that Steve mentioned earlier. He says he looks like the poor man's noddy holder. So it's Christmas. Yeah, but as Steve quite rightly pointed out with a GIF, it isn't Christmas until Noddy says it is. Andy Fraser says, "What's your take on Gorilla Gloves?" To those of you who don't know who that is, of course, it's Richard Keys, not Richard Masters. He says, "What's your take on Gorilla Gloves' follow-up tweet this morning? Is he deliberately winding us up or what, man?" Yeah, I mean, Stevie is, isn't he? He just plays for clicks, doesn't he?
He must be, but I have no idea what he said because I'm one of those people who he's blocked, so I don't even know what he's come out with. Are you blocked, Mitch?
I'm not blocked.
Surprisingly, I'm not either. Yeah.
Yeah. I will get. In fact, I will bring it up as we speak, just to read it to you because it was another cryptic thing. Yeah, here we go. It was 12 hours ago now. Events this week are the most likely reason why we shouldn't now expect an announcement today on the Saudi government's bid to buy Newcastle. Join the dots yourself. So, Steve, what do you make of that?
Right. He's obviously relating to the fact that the Saudis ban of and fine that they imposed on BN Sports, isn't he? That's what he's now getting at. He's now saying that, BN Sports are upset, so Qatar are upset, so that all bets are off. Well, it's got nothing to do with Qatar. It's got nothing to do with BN Sports. This is, as we've said all along, this is a business deal between Saudi Arabia, the PIF, PCP, and the Reuben brothers to buy Newcastle United. That's what this whole deal and structure is about. And Keys has just now thrown sort of more flack at something just because he feels as though he's been caught out, and he said it was going to happen, and now obviously he was just kite flying as usual, and now he's backtracking.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, he is just trying to make a name for himself off the back of this, but obviously he has got the connection with BN, hasn't he, Neil?
Absolutely. And look, if you want to measure the man, look at his blog this week about his so-called friend Clive Tilsley. I think that was a shocking piece of writing about somebody who's supposed to be your mate, and that's just the measure of him. I don't know what his intentions are when he comes out with stuff like that. We know he garners 100-fold more interactions when he talks about Newcastle United than he does on anything else, because we are now primed to bite. That's why so many people are blocked by him. How I've never managed to do it, I don't know, but that might change over the next 48 hours, I guess. So yeah, he certainly has been working on behalf of his employer. There's no doubt about that. So whether this is part of disinformation, misinformation, smoke and mirrors, the last burning embers, timed with a group of MPs writing another letter because most of them have got Qatar interests in one shape, form or another. you know, whether there's a degree of coordination there, who knows? But one thing's for sure is so many people seem keen to distance themselves from him, day by day. Even if you look on the screen, on the coverage when he's with Andy Gray, when he goes off on a tangent about something like Newcastle United, just look at Gray's body language. He wants to disappear backwards at 200 miles an hour. The arms are folded, and it's like, whoa, you know, here we go. Very interesting. So he also is probably acutely aware that the cushy number he's got at beIN, while beIN are losing jobs, losing money, they're losing rights to sports around the region. They've lost the F1, they're going to lose the MotoGP next year. The only game in town anymore. And so if the football coverage comes under threat, he's under threat personally. So there's his motivation.
I think another aspect is, Neil, is the fact that when Newcastle games are now on, they seem to drop them from the coverage, don't they? I mean, we had of all people, Andy Kerr.
I know.
You know,
I feel for because the position he must be in with this must be very, very awkward. You know, as a big Newcastle fan, you want to get excited about it, but his employers are big in sports. Walking a tightrope there.
Yeah, but also the fact that his employers are willing to pull keys from a Newcastle fixture must mean something. You know, either Keys has the ability to decide what he does and doesn't do, or somebody in the production team or in the executive has the nous to go, you know what, I don't want him talking, and I don't want him slagging off Newcastle United, Newcastle fans, when we are going to have 90 minutes of coverage of Newcastle United game, because it becomes a sideshow, and he'll turn that game in that fixture, in that coverage, into a sideshow if we let him loose on Newcastle United, while, you know, fans across the region who are Newcastle supporters are watching that game.
Yeah, great points, lads. Really good points. We're coming up to the last 10 minutes or so. George McVeigh says, do you think it's time for the young lads to have a kickabout now? There might be a diamond in there. And I mentioned this with, Malcolm, I think, the other night, and talked about it to a couple of the other guests this week. You know, Lee Clark yesterday. You can catch all of that on the YouTube channel if you just scroll down in the videos. Is it time to give the youngsters a run out? Because, I mean, he might not have any choice with the injury list we've got, but, you know, we've only got 2 games left, Brighton and then Liverpool. Would you like to see some of the young talent given a run out?
I think we're going to have to, aren't we? I think, you know, Keelan Watts is probably the only other recognised centre-back we have. And if he can't play better than Emil Kraft as a centre-back, then, you know, the lad probably doesn't have a future at the football club, to be perfectly honest. There's others that have been hovering around that squad, you know, during the cup runs, and then of late where he's brought players in. And we keep getting these names mentioned in the Chronicle. We keep seeing the names of certain players that have been drafted in from the under-23s and from the youth squad to train with the team. Is that going to be training with the team, and they're getting to a flavour of what the first team's all about, and there's nothing else to play for, then why not give them a run out? I'm amazed that Bruce isn't, to be perfectly honest, unless that says something about Bruce and his position, or his feelings towards where he's sitting, and he doesn't want to run the risk of a humiliation. I don't know. You would like to think that in every season that we've played, that youngsters have had an opportunity to come on and at least have a run out. And Rafa played youngsters. You know, he brought players on. You go back, Pardew did. You know, Pardew brought youngsters through. We saw plenty youngsters who it was felt as though they had the opportunity. So Bobby Robson was a master of it, wasn't he? You know, bringing young players in, giving them an opportunity, working with the squad, and actually sitting on the bench and bringing them on. So if there's no better time than this, then I don't know when there is, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, no, I didn't. Neil, do you agree? I mean,
But yeah, we talked about it a little bit with Malcolm post-match the other day. And my only concern is putting a kid in and leaving him unprotected.
yeah,
So if you stick a young lad in, say against Liverpool, and he has an absolute mare, gets skinned by Salah, and he ends up on the back end of a 6-0, that's not really helpful to him. Personally, does that really help his development? I'm not convinced it does. But we might not have a choice. We may have no choice but to chuck somebody in at the deep end and see if they swim. And in some respects, they're two dead rubbers. They don't really matter that much. So if something like that was to happen, at least generally the consensus would be, well, it didn't really matter anyway, and so
yeah.
So
I
you might get
think
away
of
with
like
it.
David Edgar when he came on, and when David Edgar made his debut against Man United, he didn't only just have a brilliant game, but he scored an absolutely amazing goal as well. And it's opportunities like that, and it happened with Matty. He got the opportunity and he took it in a big game. It happened with Sean. He got the opportunity and he took it, and now they're hovering around, and there's no reason why those other players couldn't be equally as successful.
It's something over.
They've got to be given the opportunity. That's the thing.
Yeah,
it's something over time that's frustrated me, seeing other clubs seemingly able to chuck an 18-year-old into the mix, and he turns out to be a decent player. And that we never really seem to do that. We never seem to be able to bring that through. So it would be nice to see somebody come through. I'd love to see Ludwig Francelet involved, just simply because he's got the most fantastic name.
Last question, lads, before we finish off. Steve, what do you want to see from these last two games from the team as a whole and from Steve Bruce?
I want to see more heart. I mean, we more of what we saw in midweek. I thought at times we played the ball around really well. I think what we lacked was a little bit of organisation. I think we struggled in that phasing of the game, and I just want the players to go out and feel confident, and to we know that there's quality in that squad. We know that these are decent players. These are professionals, and I don't want to see a performance like we had at Watford. I want to see more on Monday of a performance like we had against Tottenham, where at least they tried and there was effort being put in, and they looked as though they were working as a team. I thought at Watford they looked like 11 players, and it looked like sometimes they looked like 9 players. I want to see a performance out of all 11. I want to see them working as a team, and I want to see talking on the pitch, and I want to see encouragement and all of that. And I'd love to see Joe Linton goal, if I'm perfectly honest. I'd love to see a performance from the lad. That would be great towards the end of the season to see a performance from him, and to give the likes of Josh and the other lads who are firmly behind him a boost, because we don't need a boost, but Joe Linton needs a boost, and maybe those lads need a boost as well.
I think Doug agrees.
Doug agrees, yeah. The postman doesn't, because I think he's trying to have a go at him now.
Same question to you, Neil. What do you want to see out these last 2 games?
I think Steve summed it up nicely. We want a bit of heart.
Yeah.
I would like to see we go to Brighton and have a go, because there's no reason why we can't. No matter which 11 he starts, player for player against Brighton, there's no reason why we shouldn't have the joie de vivre, the ability to just go and play. Yeah. Let's have a go. Let's look like a team. Let's look like we give the monkeys. And I would like to see we not absolutely have our backsides handed to them. I would actually like to see we give them a game, and not just surrender, and not just be a walking goal, because we've got the potential to be that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Play without fear. Just do it. Play like it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. And you never know what you might actually be able to pull off. But they should be getting the message through to them. Look, relax, just play a game. Mm. But they don't look like they can relax. They just and defensively against Tottenham, the switching off was disastrous. Yeah. So I don't want to see any of that. I just want to see we have a bloody good go. Last 2 games of the season. Let's have a charge.
One more point before the clock beats us. The announcement potentially that we could see fans back in at the start of next season, albeit maybe 40% capacity. Steve, how on earth are Newcastle United going to sort that
Good luck
one
with
out?
that.
52,000 supporters, 40,000 season ticket holders. How on earth and where on earth do you start with something like that?
I've no idea. I have no idea how you could do it. I've thought about this all week actually since somebody mentioned it. And I thought, well, hang on, this isn't a club that with an empty ground. This is a club with 35, 40,000 season ticket holders. And how do you decide? Where do you sit? How do you lay it out? How do you socially distance? Do you have the accommodation inside available? Are you providing catering facilities? What happens with the toilets? All of those questions that are being asked in shopping centres and such places, how that impacts on a football ground, and then where you actually sit while social distancing, and how you decide. I mean, do you say to season ticket holders, you're entitled to every other game? Do you give what happens with season ticket holders when you're with a family member, so you can't actually sit together? All sorts of, it brings a whole different dimension into and asks more questions than answers. To be perfectly honest, and I'm struggling.
I'm just going to stop you there, lads. We've got a late addition. Chris, who's a regular viewer of the show, just wanted to come on and give us a quick pointer or make a quick point. So we're giving him access. How are you doing, Chris? You okay, mate? We've only got a couple of minutes left, so we'll have to be quick.
I'm great, thanks, mate. I'll make it quick. Okay, obviously we've waited this long, and everyone's dying for a decision. I think it will come after the close of the season, and I think that if I was going to add to my earlier question, and if I had a word with if I had a chance to appear before the committee and make the case for Newcastle takeover, I would just say, be consistent. You have to have seen how Mike Ashley has abused and mistreated this club, and for anyone to think that he's a fit and proper owner after 13 years of this rubbish, then I think that they just need to be able to show that there's like a duty of care, and that you need someone to take this club forward. And yes, the Saudis are not perfect. Like, there's so many owners, in the Premier League that are not perfect, and we just have to have, someone with ambition, who doesn't care just about the bottom line or promoting his, Sports Direct. We want somebody who's going to care about the community, the club, the fans, the supporters, and I think that this bid between Amanda Stavely and the Rubens and the Saudis is the total package. And, it can't just be a cabal at the top of the, top six clubs dominated by the South. Obviously, Manchester City and Liverpool are not in the South, but, are sort of treated as sort of honorary London clubs with their sort of global branding. And Newcastle was, once a global brand, with entertainers and Shearer and Keegan and everyone, and Sir Bobby. We can get back to that, and we just don't want to have us held back and to be our hands tied behind our back and to go into every season saying that 17th is good enough. I mean, I'm not saying we deserve more, but it just seems like the Premier League, obviously, it's gone geopolitics, and you would have thought that they would have known and sorted this piracy issue before even starting the owners and directors test. But I think that, enough is enough. They've got the decision. I don't think it's being held back, but I think that they have enough to make the decision.
Chris, Great points, well made. Hate to cut you off, mate, but obviously we're running out of time. But listen, Chris, thanks very much for joining us again, mate.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Some great points.
Well done, Chris. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
Obviously, great points again. Nice to have Chris back on. It's great to have viewers, wanting to chip in. I can't really disagree with him, Mitch.
No, he summarised pretty much what we've said in parts of part 2 and through part 3 as well.
Yeah.
And you can't disagree with that at all.
No, definitely not. Okay, guys, listen, time has beaten us again. Been an absolutely great show. Apologies to all of you watching who like to just watch it all the way through, but we've had to make it into 3 parts because we've had to do it on Zoom today and pre-recorded. But we will be back on StreamYard and doing it live next Friday. But for now, me, Steve, and Neil just want to say thank you for watching. Please subscribe, give it a like, give it a share, and we'll see you next week.
Thank
Cheers,
you for the support, guys. Take care.